asked you to come ready to talk about the tone of this year's campaigns, of this year's election. So the tone is really like positive or negative. Those are your options, okay? So positive would be, yeah, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this and we're going to continue the right path and do things that way. As opposed to negative. Things have been bad. We need to change. We need to change. We need to change. So both Hillary and Donald, what do you think here? Noah?
Hillary's was negative. Trump's was super negative.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think they were both so negative? Brennan?
Because people are scared of the other side.
It's a fear tactic, not only a fear tactic, but it's a recognition tactic. It's an attention seeker. You get people's attention if you play into their fears. And that's a sociology thing. It's not an election thing. It's sociology. What?
Trump was trying to appeal to like white rural Americans who don't like gay people or trans people. Anyone who isn't white is Christian.
Get back to the 1980s with work. Well, it's about 70s. We'll reach a compromise. Okay, so kind of getting back to, you have a chance to make $100,000 a year, regardless of where you are educationally. So that big pulls there. These are your other strategies, and it's not just presidential. I mean, it's got to be everybody. You have to come up with it. How about a theme? Has there been a theme from Donald Trump? What was his theme? The idea that he repeated over and over. Building a wall, I would say, is a little bit more of a targeted policy. But you're right. I think we can still use build a wall. Fred? Make America great again. That was his theme. It was a continual thing. The timing. Are you going to focus on the primaries, convention? What are you going to do? Because you have to win the primary to have a chance in November. So where are you going to focus? Now, there's a chance that if you focus too much on the primaries, spend too much money, what's going to happen by the end? You run out of money. So the timing matters. Where do you put the emphasis, that sort of thing? Donald Trump waited until really the last weeks to funnel money into the swing states as much as he did. And then finally, the target. What do you need to win? Now, what is it when you seek voters? What is that called when you have a group of voters that you seek in order to win? You're seeking a winning. It is a target, but the different groups, what do we call that? They are representative of a coalition, though. The coalition that you seek. Now, let's shift a little bit onto Congress because it's not just the president. We had multiple elections on Tuesday, and it's not just about President Trump and Hillary Clinton. A lot more than that. So we look here at Congress specifically. Now, when we say Congress, what I kind of put it all together. You have multiple here. You've got Congress, then you have the Senate, then you have the House of Representatives. Congress is kind of the whole idea of Congress, but if it's referred to as Congress, that tends to be just the 435 representatives. So this is the House of Reps. That's what we're talking about here. And every 10 years, what do we have? A census. So that means that because of population changes, the number of representatives might change based on your state. And every 10 years, those 435 representatives get distributed back out. And that's what this is. We look at, our terminology here, reapportioned. They're reapportioned out based on percentages of population. So if California continues to increase in population, which the trends are they are, Nevada going up, Arizona up, Texas up, Florida up. When the seats get reapportioned, they're going to get more than 53 for California. Michigan, we're at 14 right now. We're going down compared to the rest of the country. So when they get reapportioned out, what might happen to us? We might go down to 13. So those matter. Reapportionment matters. And that's where gerrymandering fits in because they get an opportunity to redraw the district lines. And we looked at District 12 in North Carolina. We looked at just Michigan and the fact that we're up with counties that are near Traverse City instead of Flint. Gerrymandering is a real thing. Redistricting is necessary. It has to happen. because of plus or minus representatives. It doesn't have to lead to gerrymandering, but it often does. And one of the parts with gerrymandering that is no longer allowed is male apportionment. So we have apportionment now with two parts, reapportionment and male apportionment. Make sure you're kind of keeping these separate. Reapportionment is when the 435 gets sent out. Male apportionment is when you compare districts. Now, on the redistricting game, the first game that you played, the first mission, dealt with male apportionment. What were you trying to do on the first mission? Equal the population. Equal out the population. And think about why that matters. Because it's one man, one vote. That's a Supreme Court case in the 1970s. Male apportionment cannot happen. So if you were to equate us to, let's say, Flint, we have about 30,000 voters in the county from Tuesday. Genesee County is going to be over 100,000. So if we, as a county, had one rep compared to Flint's one rep, is that fair? I mean, they should have, whatever our percentages are should be equal to how many reps they have. One man, one vote means that our vote in terms of the proportion of us to a rep, so 1 to, let's say, 10,000, should be the same in every area of the state and every area of the country. So that's where male apportionment comes in. No longer legal. They have to be sort of close. I mean, once you get down to the thousands, there's not really a lot you can do. But it has to be sort of close. So once we figure out what your mission is, how you're going to get there, looking at the districts, where do you belong, what can you do to win, you got to figure out how you're going to win. So you start with the primaries, and looking at that, we had a lot that we talked about. So an open primary. Who can go vote in an open primary? Anyone. How about a closed primary? Who can go vote? Just the party members. And on our quiz, the one that we really got wrong was if you show up and you can vote for the president as one party, the Senate as one party, the county commissioner as one party, and you can vote for all of them, doesn't matter what party they are, that is a blanket primary. So there are a lot of different options. What about a caucus? How does that work? You're just talking. You're selecting candidates by just talking. And in order to do that, and this is why I was referencing yesterday how Donald Trump is going to play a big role in the 2018 election, even though he's not up for re-election, because you have to take care of the people that you represent. And if you don't, they're going to vote you out. That's what democracy is, and that's how it works. So when we look at what congressional members do, it comes down to how they choose to operate. And these are our options. We'll look at some different theories related to it a little bit more, but the delegate theory or the trustee theory, these two different models. So the trustee model means that you are what? If you're a trustee, you are trusted to do what is right. If you are a delegate of the people, that means that when you make a decision, you should make the decision based on what the people want you to do. So this is kind of up in the air based on, when your reelection is up, when your campaign is starting, your opinions might change. So if you are going with the trustee model, if I'm a member of government and I'm using the trustee model, I'm going to make my decisions because I'm trusted to do so. But as I get closer to November, I'm probably going to switch more to the delegate model. I'm going to try to vote more based on what the people who elect me would want. So there can be a little bit of shift in how they approach different issues. But the whole idea is you do have to worry about re-election. The only people that don't right now at the federal level of the four branches, I guess, and I'm breaking down Congress into the House and the Senate, what's the one branch that doesn't have to worry about re-election? Just the judicial. Everybody else does. So even President Trump will have to consider how people react to him. But a little bit more about primaries to general. And that's something what we'll look at and we'll talk about a lot is the comparison between primary and general and midterm and presidential. Two different types of elections, both related to somebody earning a position, though. So the primaries, we talked about those with political parties. They get to kind of decide how they operate, but it's still a chance for us to be connected to who represents us. So that linkage institution. The primaries are kind of like the initial go-around. How much support do you have? It's like the you're kind of in the bracket trying to see how you can get to the final game, the championship game. So you have to compete against all these other people. And along the way, who are you going to need the support from? So Hillary Clinton got a lot of support from what type of person in the primaries? The extremely what? They're the ones who vote. Same with Donald Trump. When Donald Trump was winning the primaries, he is appealing to the people who are extremely conservative. The activists are the ones who go to the primary elections. So that's who you have to appeal to. Now, that's all great and good, but then you're not just appealing to those activists in November. You're appealing to the entire population. So you have to go to the extremes. And then, traditionally speaking, you have to come back to the middle in order to try to appeal to everybody. Did that happen leading up to Tuesday? Do you think Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton came back to the middle much? What do you think? I mean, I don't have an answer for you. I'm asking what you think.
Trump more so than her is. He stopped the build the wall speeches, and all Mexicans that are legal immigrants are greatest murderers.
He continued to reference it, but he took focus away from it, which is how he got the initial support. What about his comments on not ISIS, but the illegal immigration, the Muslim populations from refugee countries coming to the United States? Did he talk much about that in the last few weeks? Reference, but not as big when he was initially going against the primaries. Noah?
Yeah, I feel like we're talking about coming back to the American stuff, to like keep in context, because like all American politics is kind of skewed to the right. With Bernie Sanders, for example, in most of the countries would be considered moderate leaning conservative. Like,
well, you know what I would say to that is President Obama gets such a bad attitude from a lot of conservatives. When if you were to compare him to Ronald Reagan, he's a fairly conservative president. I mean, he does a lot of things that, conservatives years ago would be happy with. But that's a shift in the political scheme of things. It's no longer like this, just that axis. I mean, it's a big shift. And President Obama has a lot of, I'd say, liberal social issues. And that's why the focus then is on social stuff now more so than it ever has been. Yeah, Noah?
We're not the whole walking back to the political racism and stuff right before some of the elections. That's what Hitler did, like pretty exactly.
Well, I think there's a big change though in the opportunity to continually appeal to that group. There's not going to be as easy of an opportunity for that for Donald Trump because there are other ways of preventing it. But talking about campaigns, like when you make your focus, when you make your argument, we have two types of issues, all right? Just looking at the differences here, position to valence. So the easy one to look at is position issues. You take a position on it, and you're probably going to be different than your opponent. So that is easy for us to look at Tuesday, talking mainly about the presidential. What was a position issue for, we'll start with Donald Trump. You guys have already referenced a couple. What was one of his position issues? Fred?
Like something that he would like go against.
Yeah, tell me one thing that he was going to go against and change.
Obama.
That's a position issue.
He wanted to make it
He wanted us to get rid of it and then kind of get back to a free market with insurance. Yeah. Ending the trade agreements, getting rid of the trades between Mexico and the United States, and China. Those are position issues. In Russia. Good. Now, the valence issues are a little bit different. So, what is a valence issue then from Tuesday? Because a valence issue isn't a divide. It's a we sort of agree on this. So, what's a valence issue? ISIS. I mean, there are, I think, two separate debates. And I think they went back, the orders were reversed. But one of them would talk, the other would talk, and then the second person would say, this is actually an area that I agree with. So the valence issues are more like everybody understands that's an important issue in the country, so they kind of follow the same suit. ISIS is one. And on a presidential level, it's a lot easier to see a divide of position issues than at more local stuff. More local stuff, you're going to have a lot more valence issues. But one of them, I mean, is we're going to improve the economy. Everybody in the country wants to improve the economy. You might not agree on how, but who's gonna listen to Donald Trump speak when he talks about improving the economy and say, no, I don't want you to improve the economy? I mean, that, or Hillary, that we're going to protect our troops. No conservative, Republican, libertarian, whatever is going to say, no, I don't want you to protect our troops. They might not agree with how you do it, but they approach it from the same platform of, yeah, that's a good idea. We just might not agree on how you plan to do it. So those are kind of the breakdowns of how they approach the issues. So this election, the media, specifically social media, played a huge, huge role. And that is, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of role it plays in the next, probably, it'll be a little similar in the midterm, probably 2020, pretty similar too. But what develops from this point on that continues to change the political arena. I think Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton did pretty well with their own Twitters. If you think about what Donald Trump was able to do with the attention that he got from his comments on Twitter, that is huge. Whether you agreed with what he said or not, most of you saw them. And it's free. I mean, there were promoted tweets also, right? I think Hillary and Donald used that. But think about how many followers he had. I think the last I looked, they both were at 12 million. Maybe more now. But that's pretty significant. And then you consider how many retweets you get. That's all free and immediate exposure to a huge chunk of the population. But with that, with the media, especially today, not just Twitter, but YouTube, you have to be pretty darn careful with what you do and what you say. Because if you say the wrong thing, it's on repeat over and over and over and over. So you can't slip up. Donald Trump has done a lot of new things that somehow don't follow the trend. For how many times he has said things that he's went back on, it's kind of crazy that it goes away from basically everything that has happened historically, which kind of speaks to his entire campaign and how people he gained so much support. But there are a lot of them. I showed you Howard Dean's video. That's a huge slip up. And the visual side of it matters too, because think about Hillary Clinton and one of the biggest criticisms that she initially faced from the country. It was that as a woman, did she have the look of a president? I mean, I don't even know what that means as anything, but consider JFK to Richard Nixon as well. 1960. People who listened to the debate on the radio thought that Richard Nixon won. Then you saw the television replay and you saw Nixon's kind of nice, old-looking, smug mug compared to JFK's, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's JFK. I mean, come on. He's just JFK. Just that pretty face. And it was a huge shift because you have the appearance now. So people often have to consider that as they go through their appearance. But the whole time, Donald Trump knows what he's doing. Hillary Clinton knows what they're doing. They work with the media. When Hillary Clinton had when Donald Trump had the video come out, Hillary Clinton's campaign had to have known it was coming because they have friends in the media. And I know Donald Trump criticizes the media a lot, and Hillary Clinton actually criticizes the media a lot as well. It's just not as vocal. They have friends in the media that share with them, that portray them in certain ways. So it does happen, even though they criticize it. Jake.
I was looking at Trump's Twitter at 3.5 million more followers.
What are they up to?
He was at 14.2 and she was at 10.8.
Okay, so I mean, still in the millions, and then you consider the retweets and everything like that. How many? Whatever. That's a lot of exposure, a huge chunk of exposure. All right, but now back to the money side of this. Presidential to congressional. Presidential and congressional are different from how they get their money, but the limits are the same. To begin with presidential, If you're running for president, what do you have the opportunity to receive? Federal funding, tax dollar money, the public money. So if you're running for the presidency in your primary election, even if you're not going to win, you get to receive money. That includes Martin O'Malley, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Ben Carson. They get to receive federal funding as long as they have, in 20 different states, received their set amount. So there are the dollar amounts that are attached to it, but it's there. Then also, once they get to November, if they win, they get even more federal money, matching money. 2008 was the first time that they turned it down. John McCain took it. President Obama did not. So, in a way, what does that look like for President Obama? That you could take it two sides. Thumbs up, or what's the matter with you, you jerk? Are you too good for the public money? And John McCain used that angle where the Obama camp used the different side. But a huge chunk of money. Now, congressional, though, what do they have to do to get all of their money? They don't get tax dollars. So what do they have to do? Consistently. Fundraise. October. They had almost the entire month off. In fact, they did have the whole month off. I don't know if they do like meetings and stuff also, but they just fundraise. They go to rallies, they hold dinners, and it is so easy for somebody who is well known to fundraise, which means the person who is in office. But the limits, we went through this with your campaign sheet, $2,600 per individual. PACs, $5,000. But now we have to care about the kind of more difficult stuff where we look at the campaign finance reforms and the cases that go into it. So we'll start with 1974. When we went through that quickly, we're just kind of clarifying it from the work that we did the other day. Campaign finance creates the FEC, Federal Elections Commission. And their job is to make sure that when money is donated to an individual, it is regulated. So if it's donated to an individual and it's regulated, what type of money is it? Hard. It's hard money. It has to be regulated. And there are limits. If you want to donate as a union or a corporation, you have to form a PAC because you then have to follow their guidelines. But there were the big loopholes. So you guys just talked about the hard money. Now the soft money, much different. They can do whatever they want with donations as long as they don't give it to Donald Trump. They would instead have given, and I'm saying it like it still happens, it doesn't. They would have given it, though, to the Republican Party. And then the Republican Party would say, well, I'm going to go to every rural town in America and try to register as many people as I can to vote. So does that influence the outcome of the election? Just like it would be if Hillary Clinton was able to do that in African-American neighborhoods. So just because it's not given to the candidate makes it soft money, not regulated by the FEC, and that is a huge, huge loophole. Then people started to realize that was a big problem. So they passed this, 2002. This is the McCain-Feingold one that was made by John McCain and Russ Feingold. That's just so you know where the name comes from again. But the ban is there for soft money. They realized how big of a problem that was, so they ban it. Now they try to get more of the times. Today, it's increased even more. They increased it now because of inflation. But there are two big things that came from this. Number one, right away, you see this. The 30 days before primary, 60 days before a general election. Do you see, or did you see, ads last week that were not from Donald Trump or not from Hillary Clinton about either of them? Yeah, that was immediately taken to the Supreme Court. Actually, the whole thing was taken to the Supreme Court because why couldn't a labor union spend $20 million to the Democratic Party to try to get them to go to Detroit and register as many African Americans as they could to try to influence the election? So that is the soft money that was banned by the law, and immediately it went to the Supreme Court. Now, you've said this, but what is the concern with any campaign finance restriction or law? What amendment is violated when somebody can't spend the money that they earn how they want to spend it and influence the election? What amendment are we talking about? I'm sorry, maybe you're thinking too big. What Bill of Rights amendment are we talking about? First, with what? Chase? Free what? That's not in the First Amendment. Free speech. Free speech. So it's a violation of free speech. Can they influence campaign? Is free speech a part of donating money to a campaign? Is that a protected form of free speech? And that's what the Supreme Court has been trying to address. So to begin with, McConnell versus FEC upheld a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. But then here, it was challenged again. So this is one of the rare times that you see a Supreme Court take the same issue and listen to it that close together. So what typically happens, like with gay marriage, if the court becomes a conservative-leaning court, they're not going to listen to a gay marriage case in February. The court doesn't do that, because if they did, then what would happen to the respect of the court? People just wouldn't trust their rulings anymore, which would break apart the foundation of America. But this is, I don't know if it's because it was related to finance or what. This was heard within 10 years, and that's a pretty big change. So what happened here is they upheld most of it, saying that the restrictions were not a violation of free speech, while here they said that, okay, look, number one, you have these 527s that are not contributing soft money because it's not going to a party. So they're not violating the Bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act. And that restriction on those ads is ridiculous. What you're doing then is you're telling somebody that they can't personally advertise who they want to support, whether they're a union or not, a corporation or not. That is unconstitutional. So 527s can now do basically whatever they want. They aren't affiliated with a party. They aren't affiliated with a candidate, but they can send ads, letters, whatever, promoting their cause. So the one that I saw that was before the election was the Hillary ad that talked about Benghazi and the emails, and then it talked about the Second Amendment. So that was where it came from. But they weren't lobbying and coordinated with Donald Trump. They were going the other direction. Yes.
I did a very funny ad that I saw on YouTube, which was Hefty, and the only text on the screen was his political ad was trash due to Vance Hefty. It was trashing both candidates.
Oh, huh? I mean, if that's how you want to spend your money, I guess the McConnell versus the Citizens United case says you can. Whatever. So the two cases again, McConnell upheld it right away, and then 2010, that's where 527 groups were supported. So just looking at what actually helps you win the election, money doesn't change much in terms of the president because they all have so much money. Now, congressional candidates are all on their own, right? They don't have the same tax dollar public money. It's all private. So they have an advantage if they have more money. Because if you're not very good at fundraising, you're not going to have a lot of money and you're not going to win. These presidential candidates, they all can get money. Donald Trump, you look at Mitt Romney, extremely wealthy. Donald Trump, extremely wealthy. But don't kid yourself about Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. They're independently wealthy. Not anywhere near what they are, but they are pretty wealthy themselves. Not enough to fund their campaign, but enough to know the right people to get the fundraising. So even if they don't take the federal money, the public money, they're still going to have a huge amount. So they don't change because of how much money you have. You have to have it, but you're not going to win because you have it. It's just like the necessary part of the gig. So what does change it then? So first, the economy. That is one of the biggest indicators. The economy. People vote based on their pocketbook. If we're in a recession, what typically happens at the presidential time? Let's say it's a Republican who's in office. What's going to happen at the election? Whatever it is. It doesn't matter who it is, who it was, they flip. If a Republican's in office and the economy is improving, what's going to happen? It's going to be another Republican or the same person, re-election. People tend to vote that. Party affiliation, candidate's character, all a big role. The party affiliation is an interesting one where a lot of people are one side or the other without even considering it. And then the candidate's character really goes back to those presidential paradoxes that we looked at. You want somebody who is, affiliated with you, but above politics. You want somebody who is a national hero, but at the same time, somebody that you can go eat lunch with. The expectations for our presidential character are not practical or realistic, but they all play a role. Now, with those different factors, again, we look at the results from Tuesday, and more people in our country say that they are Democrats than Republicans. So when I say party affiliation, why didn't Hillary Clinton win? Well, what did we look at with Wayne County? I mean, a big chunk of Wayne County says they're Democratic, but what happened to the turnout? Went down. Democrats are not as likely to vote or be registered to vote, but then also they're not as loyal in terms of their voting. That mattered. Independence. This was big time true on Tuesday. So this is like I can't think of the polling data, but independents were big time leaning for Donald Trump. And the whole campaign matters. So with Donald Trump, I think it was Damien talking about how what was Donald Trump able to do that attracted so many people, regardless of their affiliation? What did he talk about that you brought up on yesterday morning? There you go, anti-establishment. So that was a huge, huge focus. The anti-establishment people went with Donald Trump. And the fact of the matter is, I've talked a lot about Donald Trump and his campaign. The fact that a personal following, which is Donald Trump, shows the Republican Party not having as much power. He won. So his campaign, whether it was a strategy they had developed, the Republicans' role, whatever, he won. So he had the right voters turnout. He attracted the right coalition. While all this other stuff, you look at the timing, the target, the tone, the theme, Make America Great Again, the negative views of the establishment, whatever he did worked, and he had the coalition that was necessary. The Democrats did not have the coalition that was necessary because they didn't have the loyalty that Donald Trump was able to get. All right, so just ending with a little bit of history review. We talked about it quite a bit, but it's, again, evident today because we have another shift. We had 2 terms of blue, 2 terms of red, 2 terms of blue, 3 terms of red, blue, 2 reds, 2 blues. Now we're back to a red. So it's kind of a balancing act, really. We had these coalitions, the Republican earthquake election with 1860. Then we had the New Deal with 1932. But since FDR's terms ended, we had a little bit with Truman, but it's been back and forth. It's a balancing act. I think, that's in a way, the two-party system, how it's been so persistent the last 60 years. I mean, it was evident before, but the balancing act, there's a little bit of parity understood. So it kind of goes back and forth. But I mean, the other side that is difficult here is while Donald Trump is the anti-establishment candidate, then we have all these members of Congress. There is a big cynicism that a lot of people have towards just government in general, because what really can one senator do or one president? And if you were to evaluate the people, if you were to evaluate your candidates, your presidential candidates, what made them successful? And for most of the people that were successful, it was because it wasn't just them. If you like the rankings of presidents, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, FDR, they tend to be towards the top in all of these lists. And what made them successful was not because of them necessarily, it's because of what they were able to do with other people. So that's why there's a lot of cynicism out there about it doesn't matter who wins, it's all going to be the same. Well, Donald Trump won on a lot of people who think that he's not the same. So that is maybe what it's going to take for some of that negative view of government, mistrust of government to change. Last thing though, this was a big part of Tuesday. Closed-pin vote, the lesser of two evils. So what does that do? What do you do with a closed-pin vote? You go into the voting booth, you close your nose, and you vote for the candidate that doesn't stink that much. You vote for the one that stinks the least. So you're clothespin, you're covering up your nose. You don't have to smell either of them. You're going with the one that stinks the least. That was a big part of Tuesday. I don't know how many people I heard say, I don't like either of them, but I can't stand Hillary. I have to vote for Trump. Or I think Trump is a bad person. I don't like Hillary, but I just can't vote for Trump. So I heard that endlessly, well before November. I mean, we're talking September into the summer. So that was very evident. And in 4 years, like the hate, Donald Trump has 4 years, well, really 2 years to kind of do some pretty positive things to pull the country back together. Then if he does, it's going to continue that way probably with the midterms, with the House staying still Republican. So then we'll see if by 2020, those negative campaigns that we talked about Hillary with Donald doing the same thing, maybe they'll change and be a little bit more positive and bring the country together as opposed to divide them. So